He is destroying his legacy, Laura Ingraham wrote.
Reports that Antifa sympathizers may have been sprinkled throughout the crowd. We'll have
text messages from Fox News hosts that were sent to Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, on January 6th have now been revealed as part of an investigation into the attack on the Capitol. And damn, are these texts good. So it really gives you a window into how blatantly dishonest Fox News is. I mean, we already know this, but this is like, I guess, direct evidence of it. But before I get to these texts, which I will get to shortly, I just want to give you the reasoning why these are now public. So this from the New York Times. The texts were made public on Monday, shortly before the House committee scrutinizing the January 6th attack on the Capitol voted 9-0 in favor of recommending that Mr. Meadows be charged with contempt of Congress. Representative Liz Cheney, Republican of Wyoming, read the text messages aloud. So let's get to that video right now.
According to the records, multiple Fox News hosts knew the president needed to act immediately. They texted Mr. Meadows, and he has turned over those texts. Quote, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy, Laura Ingraham wrote. Please get him on TV. Destroying everything you have accomplished, Brian Kilmeade texted. Quote, can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol, Sean Hannity urged.
Absolutely incredible. Now, in a minute here, I will get to another clip showing you what a certain Fox host, one of those Fox hosts, were saying on air that very night as they were texting the Trump administration something clearly different. But first here, look, it's clear that all three were very aware of how serious the attack on the Capitol was, despite the fact that they have downplayed it since January 6th. I mean, they've also denied publicly that Trump had any role in the Capitol riot, yet, interestingly, they were texting Trump to stop it. So you can't be texting Trump to stop what was going on while claiming publicly that, oh, he had nothing to do with it. Well, if he had nothing to do with it, then why are you texting him to stop it? Some examples here from The Independent. Ms. Ingraham has mocked testimony from Capitol police officers speaking to the January 6th committee on her show, The Ingraham Angle, in a segment titled The Angle Awards for today's best performances. She suggested police officers exaggerated the events of that day. In a November interview with Mr. Trump, Mr. Hannity suggested that the January 6th committee had a predetermined conclusion, which is to bludgeon you. Oh, yes, a predetermined conclusion to bludgeon Donald Trump, who you yourself texted to stop what was going on. Now, let's get to Laura Ingraham specifically here. So her text again said, hey, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy. So here she is clearly blaming Trump and telling him to stop it. Yet here she is that very night on her show. Look where she puts the blame.
Today, the Capitol was under siege by people who can only be described as antithetical to the MAGA movement. Now, there were likely not all Trump supporters, and there are some reports that Antifa sympathizers may have been sprinkled throughout the crowd. We'll have more on that later. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, what happened today was tragic and disgraceful. I think what you're referring to is what I saw in images throughout the day. Some of these tactics are reminiscent of Antifa, and this was foreseeable. I mean, you would expect for them to infiltrate the crowd and try to create an incident. That's what they do.
I've been to literally dozens of Trump events, and the criminal actions we saw today do not represent this movement. The Washington Times is reporting that at least 2 Antifa were spotted in the crowd.
Blatant dishonesty. Laura Ingraham knew that Antifa had nothing to do with the riots, yet there she was on her show, floating the idea that maybe they're to blame. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she's texting the Trump administration to tell him to stop what's going on. Just so dishonest. How many more examples do we need? I mean, this is just blatant, in your face. Now, last thing here, of course, as of recording this, Fox has not acknowledged these text messages. So this from Justin Baragona saying, in case you were wondering, Fox and Friends, which of course includes Brian Kilmeade, who was in one of those text messages, completely ignored the text messages from Fox News stars sent to Mark Meadows begging Trump to intervene in the Capitol riots. Will they mention this? Will Laura Ingraham bring this up? I don't know. I doubt it, but I'm sure if they do, they'll do it in some roundabout weird way where they aren't to blame. We all know, we can see the dishonesty here, so whatever they do from here is not really going to be all that surprising. But this really gives you a window into both how serious they took the riots behind closed doors, but also their blatant dishonesty in presenting a very different narrative to the public.